Out of all the abilities in the entire Splatoon series, none seem to be more infamous than Last-Ditch Effort. Hey, I'm Evie, a longtime Splatoon player, and welcome to the third installment of the History of Splatoon abilities. Last time, we went over Opening Gambit, and now we're getting right into its counterpart, Last-Ditch Effort. But before going into its history, let's go over what the ability does and how it works. Last-Ditch Effort is a headgear exclusive ability that gives you a large amount of abilities in the last 30 seconds of a match. The conditions to trigger the abilities and the amount it gives is different in each game. So let's start with its first appearance in Splatoon. On launch, Last-Ditch Effort gave you 15 AP, or 5 subs of Ink Saver Main, Ink Saver Sub, and Ink Recovery Up during the last 30 seconds of a game. 15 subs of 3 different abilities for 1 main slot isn't a bad trade-off, but it's pretty limiting. Restricting it to the last 30 seconds makes it a good turf war niche, where performance at the end of the game matters the most, and this reduces downtime being able to paint as much as possible. This really didn't transfer over to the ranked modes. Since you're relying on an ability to activate in the last 30 seconds of a 5-minute game, it already might have been too late by then. And at the time, Combat gave you 4 subs of all the subs Last-Ditch Effort gives you, along with run speed and swim speed for 20 seconds after dying. So, weapons like Range Blaster and Dynamo would rather have 1 less sub of the savers in order to receive the movement buffs upon respawn. A weird quirk when playing ranked is that the ability will activate when 30 seconds are left, but if overtime activates, the ability will go away. Why? You're still at the end of a game. Feels like they just forgot to keep it active. Very Nintendo Wii U era decision, and doesn't help this middling ability anymore. But in version 2.6.0 on March 8th, 2016, Last-Ditch Effort got 3 changes. When playing in ranked battles, if the enemy score hits 30 on the counter, the ability will become active regardless of the match time left. In ranked battles, Last-Ditch Effort activates during overtime, and finally, it gives you an additional 5 subs of quick respawn when activated. This is a pretty big buff. Not only becomes more usable in ranked battles, but giving you quick respawn makes sure you're more active at the last part of the match, even if you do get killed. Though, even after this massive change, it saw very little use. Why is that? My guess is because the environment of the Splatoon 1 meta was very restricting. Anything that wasn't seen as a top tier wasn't seen that much. And since at this time, Last-Ditch Effort was mostly seen in Turf War, which most Splatoon competitive players don't play. And even in the ranked modes, players would prefer the consistency of comeback or just the saver abilities outright. This is how Last-Ditch Effort was left in Splatoon 1, but it returned in Splatoon 2. At the launch of Splatoon 2, Last-Ditch Effort actually got some changes in the transition to the new game. The effects of Last-Ditch Effort increased from 15 AP to 18 AP, or from 5 to 6 subs, but in exchange, the ability no longer provides quick respawn. The extra sub of the savers are nice, but the loss of quick respawn hurts more in my opinion. The meta of the beginning of Splatoon 2 was very stagnant. Tri-Slosher, M-Parry Splat Dualies, Rapid Blaster, all very ink-efficient weapons that want to lean more into their specials and their movement. But in version 1.4.0 on October 11, 2017, Last-Ditch Effort got a buff that won't have its full impact realized yet. The amount of abilities given have been increased from 6 to 8 subs, or 18 to 24 AP. This was the second time Last-Ditch Effort got enhanced, but no one batted an eye. Even with these restricted activation conditions, I would say it's now worth it. At least for Turf War and maybe some Rainmaker maps. Not a direct buff to the ability, but in version 3.2.0 on July 13, 2018, Splattershot Jr. received a bigger ink tank with 10% more capacity. Jr. was really only picked to spam Splat Bombs and Ink Armor, and people realized after this patch, you don't have to use as much Ink Saver Sub in order to hit double Splat Bomb. I'll get back to this later. Not a direct change, but in version 4.1.0 on October 3rd, 2018, Fizzy Bomb was released, and the community realized immediately how broken it was. If you had the effects of Last-Ditch Effort, Fizzy Bomb would only cost 46% of your ink tank at the time, instead of 60%. This meant double Fizzy Bomb. Double of the most broken sub in the game. Now, most people would just use Ink Saver Sub, but you did see a good amount of Last-Ditch Effort, since the Ink Recovery Up can contribute majorly. This patch also introduced Kensa's Sloshing Machine, which loved the effects of Inksaver main. The ability even saw use after Fizzy Bomb's Inksaver sub's effectiveness got nerfed in 4.3. You know how I mentioned earlier that Splattershot Jr. got a bigger ink tank? Well, in version 4.2.0 on November 7th, 2018, two big things were released. The release of Torpedo and Kensa Splattershot Jr. Torpedo was a very annoying sub-weapon to deal with, so people were trying to spam it, and Kensa Splattershot Jr. was the best at it with its bigger ink tank. The other torpedo weapon in this patch was Kensa Undercover Umbrella, which loved last-ditch effort in order to make uptime to be as annoying as possible. Though, like with Fizzy Bomb, last-ditch effort wasn't the main ability used, but it still showed up for the same reasons. But in version 4.7.0 on April 24th, 2019, that patch happened. The time where Splatoon changed forever. When playing a ranked match, the effects of last-ditch effort would start a count at 50 and scale all the way to the previous maximum of 30. This means last-ditch effort was available for a larger portion of the match. It didn't catch on immediately, but over the next few months, players started to realize its potential and all hell broke loose. This was a shifting point in Splatoon 2's meta. There wasn't an individual patch that made last-ditch effort broken, more like small changes over a long period of time. Buffs to Jet Squelcher, N-Zap, Splattershot, Suction Bomb, Tentamissiles, Ink Armor, and many more things. The meta shifted to quad shooter, with most of these shooters running last-ditch effort, and this is where Splatoon 2 got its reputation of paint-heavy, stall, and spammy matches. What made last-ditch effort so good was that you were able to keep painting with a very little downtime. So a weapon like Kensa Splattershot, which already had good ink efficiency, was even better because of the Inksaver main it received, along with more suction bombs and less downtime with the ink recovery up, which in turn leads to more specials, since Splatoon 2 was filled with specials that could be spammed, like Stingray, Tentamissiles, Ink Armor, and Booyah Bomb. An ability being good is fine. An ability being powerful is also fine. But an ability that's over-centralizing is a problem. Last-ditch effort enabled all the problems Splatoon 2 had with its spam, and the massive amounts of savers that were available back in 1.4.0 was brought to the forefront because of this newfound access. So that's how last-ditch effort ended off in Splatoon 2. Arguably started off worse than it was in Splatoon 1, and became hands down the best ability in Splatoon 2. But for better and for worse, last-ditch effort returned in Splatoon 3. Splatoon 3 barely had any changes in the transition from Splatoon 2, so player trends were very similar early on. If anything, some might call it worse. There were three prominent weapons in early Splatoon 3 that abused last-ditch effort: Sloshing Machine, Fling-a-Roller, and Splash-O-Matic. Machine was back from Splatoon 2 and even scarier than ever, keeping the Fizzy Bomb from the Kensa kit and receiving Booyah Bomb. Machine was the biggest user of last-ditch effort, as all parts of the kits took up a lot of ink, while also keeping the oppressive hitbox of the main weapon more active. Even over the course of the first year of the game, Machine was nerfed 4 times, and Fizzy Bomb was nerfed twice, and it's still in a pretty good spot, so all the extra savers help it immensely. Fling-a-Roller reprised its role from Splatoon 2, being a Tentamissile spammer. It is good long-distance paint, and the extra savers are useful in terms of keeping uptime and denying space from slower, mid-ranged weapons. Even after missiles got the cooldown nerf, basically every Flingza still runs it. And lastly, Splash-O-Matic. Now, Splash doesn't need last-ditch effort, but if it runs it, it's able to keep up the pressure even longer and be even more impressive. This enables it to get its special more and poke with burst bombs more. Even after Burst Bomb and Crab Tank got nerfed, last-ditch effort is still a solid ability choice for it. Though the spamming nature from Splatoon 2 was reduced somewhat, as the default amount of points for special are now 200 instead of 180, with also some of the bombs getting radius nerfs, along with the new specials that aren't easily as spammable, and, later down the line, other specials got direct nerfs to not be spammed as easily. Throughout the first year of Splatoon 3, last-ditch effort got used less and less. It didn't become bad or anything, but the meta became more diverse. With lots of comeback and quick respawn weapons, Splatlings becoming more prominent, having very little room to use much more than run speed, ballpoint Splatlings, Snipe Riders, Splatter Shots. All these weapons like last ditch effort, but would rather be running other abilities a lot of the time. But in version 5.0.0 on August 31st, 2023, last ditch effort got a nerf, decreasing the amount of subs it received from 8 to 6, while adjusting the scaling. It was interesting the developers nerfed it now, since last ditch effort wasn't seeing as prominent use as before. A well overdue nerf finally happened though. This makes the ability still valuable for weapons that have an ink efficiency problem, but not a no-brainer on every single weapon. At the time of writing, this is how last ditch effort is left in Splatoon 3. The meta hasn't really settled yet, but last ditch effort will still be strong, just on an overpowered choice. Currently, this is where last ditch effort stands in the Splatoon 3 environment. Honestly, it'd probably be shorter to list all the weapons that don't want last ditch effort, though in Splatoon 1, very few weapons do actually want it. Maybe Dynamo Roller, maybe 96 cal, maybe Range Blaster. But in Splatoon 2, basically everything wants it. Weapons that don't really want it are usually aggressive weapons that want comeback instead, or weapons with already good ink efficiency, such as Dabble Doolies, Splooshomatic, Carbon Roller. But if you wanted to use last ditch effort, it still wouldn't be a waste considering the amount of abilities it gives you just for one slot. In Splatoon 3, lots of weapons still want last ditch effort, but it isn't a requirement after the nerf. X-Splasher, Flings-A-Roller, Dynamo Roller, Slushing Machine, Splatbrella, all like the ability, but weapons like Splashomatic, E-Leader, Splatana Stamper, Jet Squelcher still benefit from it, but can run other abilities without feeling like it's missing out on something big. Last ditch effort is the most impactful in Turf War and Splat zones, but works well in every other mode too. When a ranked match gets close to time running out, people will be very cautious and only advance when there are no enemies in front of them, and having more ink for bombs can clear out an area for longer. The more paint and uptime you have, the more you'll get your special, which further suppresses the opponents. After version 5.0.0, I think last ditch effort is in a balanced place. It's strong without its presence being suffocating. It's had a very turbulent history, from being a niche turf war ability, to seeing almost no use, to then being one of the most influential Splatoon abilities of all time, to now being in a strong, but not overtuned spot. Though I do have some things to go over before we're done. The gear icon has been updated a couple times. In Splatoon 1, it's an analog clock with its hand signifying the end of the match, and in Splatoon 2 and 3, it's the tape that covers the screen when the match ends. In the beta, it was an hourglass with the blue 30, parallel to opening Gambit at the time. In Splatoon 3, if you want to put last ditch effort on a piece of headgear, it costs 15 chunks of Inksaver main, Inksaver sub, and Ink Recovery up. I'd like to thank everyone for watching. I really enjoy doing this series, and it seems you all enjoy it as well. Comment down below on what ability you'd like to see next. Make sure to like and subscribe, as I post updates to in-progress videos and channel updates in the community tab. See you next time. Bye.